Welcome everyone. Thank you very much for coming to CPR Ukulele and learning to put some new life into your music. So what is this all about? I think sometimes we get so focused on what chord are we playing and what's the lyric of the song and where are we going, that we don't realize you don't have to cram every single minute of what you're playing with something. Yes, so there's so much going on that we just don't think about the important thing that we're missing, which is the spaces. And sometimes less can definitely be more. So when we're playing and we think, okay, I need to put some space in here, I need to put some air in to let my music and my playing breathe. That's all very good and well to say that, but how do I do it? Where do I do it? You know, what are there any rules? What am I going to do to give less? So this is where we come in with today's workshop. Now I'm going to be throwing a lot at you. So do feel free to jump in at any time with questions. If you don't understand something, if you need me to repeat it, it's a pretty full-on subject and it can be a bit confusing, but it's definitely worth going into. So when we start to think about letting our music breathe, giving it more room, the four things that immediately come to mind to me is your time signature, is your phrasing, your tempo, and your dynamics. And we're going to go through each of these four things one by one. So the first thing I want to look at, because it really affects just about everything else, is your time signature. Now, if you have a piece of music in front of you, say, for example, the 12-bar blues that's on the handout, you'll see it says 4/4. Now, all this is telling me that I really need to know straight off the bat, is there 4 beats to the bar? So it's how I'm actually playing those drums is completely irrelevant to start with. Yes. The technical gods are definitely giving me a challenge. So what I'm going to try and do is not talk when I play. So it's going to be a bit choppy, so bear with me. So 4 beats to the bar, we've got that far. So that's great. We know we need to play 4 beats to the bar. However, no, let me rephrase that now that I've completely thrown myself. We know that there are 4 beats to the bar. Can you hear the uke now? Is that okay? Yes, okay. But just because it's still very low, is that what you're saying? Pam, are you saying it's still not very loud? You ladies are so wonderful putting up with all these problems. Okay, no, I don't have to play. Great. So 4 beats to a bar. If I clap, can you hear that? All right, I'm going to clap instead of playing. Lucky you. So 4 beats to the bar, but just because we know we have 4 beats to the bar, it doesn't mean you have to play every single beat. So you might be going, I've got 4 beats to the bar, but I'm only going to play 3. So what happens to the 4th beat? Well, you still count it in your head, but you don't play it. So that will give you 1, 2, 3, rest. So that's definitely something to think about. Now you can put that rest break anywhere. You can go 1, rest, 3, 4. You can go 1, rest, 2, rest. So try that. Have a play 4 strums, rest on the 2nd and the 4th. So you go play, rest, play, rest, play, rest, play, rest. Now try 1, 2, 3, rest. So go play, 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 rest, play, 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 rest. And you'll see from doing that it actually feels and sounds a little bit different where you put the rest break. So that's definitely something to play around with. It's like, okay, where am I going to put this rest break and what am I going to do with that rest? Now, if you've seen my previous workshop on fingerstyle patterns, and if you haven't, I recommend you go back and have a look at that at some stage. And we look at arpeggios, which is playing a chord one string at a time. And again, we look at some patterns where we're not playing every beat of the bar. So we might arpeggio 1, 2, 3, rest, or you might get a little bit fancy and go 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. So it's 1 and 2 and 3, rest, rest. So there's lots of things you can do within those 4 beats to the bar to just give some variation, but give some space between the notes. Don't be my friend who plays like this. God bless him and his wife and his kids. Because, I mean, I would never say anything to him because he's having the best time of his life, and that's fantastic. But for you ladies, if you want to improve where you think you are right now, and let me just say that I've yet to come across anyone who plays ukulele who isn't actually better than they think they are. But if you want to improve where you're playing, start thinking about what's my time signature. And even if you have no music theory and you don't really understand anything about music theory, if you can tap along to a song, you'll know what that time signature is. If it's a march, 1, 2, 3, 4, that's 4, 4. If it's a waltz, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, that's a 3, 4. And they're really the 2 basic ones you need to know. So start by thinking about your time signature. The next thing I want to think about, and this is especially important if you're doing chord melody or you're finger picking or you're singing, is your phrasing. And a musical phrase is very similar to a verbal or a spoken phrase. And as with writing and speaking, punctuation really counts. So I could say to you, what is this thing called love? Or I could say to you, what is this thing called love? And you're going to get 2 very, very different questions. So musical phrasing is really important. But where are we going to put this phrasing? How do we know where to put these punctuation marks? Again, think of your musical phrasing as you think of speaking. Where would you take a breath when you're reading something out aloud? And the example that I came up with was Yellow Submarine, which I'm going to read off the page because I know if I try and do it by memory today, I will embarrass myself by not remembering it. But if I said to you, and I'd like you to try it after I've said it, say the first verse of Yellow Submarine in one whole breath with no pausing. So what you end up with is, in the town where I was born lived a man who sailed the sea, and he told us of his life in the land of submarines. And then you fall over because you run out of breath. And that's fun to say out loud, and I encourage you all to have a go at saying it. But musically, it doesn't really work, I guess, unless you're into some kind of weird punk rap thing, which I'm so not. So if we think about Yellow Submarine, it's in 4/4. 1, 2, 3. In the town, comma, where I was born, breath, lived a man, comma, who sailed the sea, breath. I'm obviously simplifying that very much. But if you really slow it down and break it down into very basic chunks, you can start to see where the phrasing comes in. So have a go at that. Play the first verse of Yellow Submarine. First of all, I want you to try and play it all in one hit, which I must admit is really, really hard to do with chords. So I'm really glad I'm not playing at the moment. And then think about it, play it where the breaks and the pauses are. So have a go at that and see how you go. Excellent. Give me a thumbs up when you're happy with that. Yay, yay, yay. Excellent. I must say there are some lovely looking instruments here today. Fantastic. So we're understanding our time signature and we're understanding our phrasing. Now, if you were playing along in a group, you probably wouldn't mess with the phrasing. But if you're working on your own composition or you're playing something that doesn't have lyrics, that it's instrumental, you could definitely try different phrasing, which unfortunately I won't be able to show the example I had prepared earlier. But yes, definitely play around with the phrasing. Take something that you know by heart, like Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, Go Tell Aunt Rhody, Happy Birthday, any of those really excruciatingly basic examples that get thrust upon you when you first start learning. And play with the time signature and play with the phrasing and just become aware of how that's really influencing what the song sounds like. So that brings us to our third element, which is tempo. And tempo is basically how fast or slow you're playing a song or a composition. People do tend to get into a rut with tempo and they think, well, this is the way the song starts. So this is the way I'm going to play the chorus. I'm on to verse 3. I haven't fallen asleep yet. I'm at the very end and I've played everything exactly the same all the way through, which really is back to my friend who plays everything like this. There's no variation unless there's something else going on. It's going to be really boring. If you're finger picking or if you're changing key or you're doing other interesting stuff, then having a regular, consistent tempo is fine. And Fried, I think we are all guilty of doing that at some stage in our life. I know that I actually have the opposite problem with tempo, and sometimes I'm not consistent enough. When I'm starting to learn something, and this definitely comes into problems with my own practice routine, is we're taught when we first start to play, start at the beginning of the song and play it through. So I play the first bit and I play the first bit and I play the first bit and I play the first bit. I get really, really good at playing the first bit. Fantastic. Now it's time to go on to the second bit. So I play the first bit, that's fine. And then I get to the second bit and it gets slower and slower and slower and slower until I stop because I've reached the point of where I don't know what I'm doing. Okay, so what do? I go back to the start and I play the first bit and I play the first bit and then it goes on and it goes on and it goes on. And what I'm really doing is teaching myself to play at a decreasing speed. And there'll be times when that will be appropriate. I don't know when that might be, but perhaps you could write a tune that's appropriate, but it's not. It's not going to be appropriate a lot of the time. So sometimes we want a consistent speed and sometimes we don't want a consistent speed. We might say, you know, it's a really rocking song. I'm doing a really cool verse. This is really great. And then we have a key change and the story becomes very sad and she leaves me and my cat dies and it turns into the blues and, you know, it becomes sad. But then we go back to the verse and then she comes back and my cat has a 9 life and we all up happy ending. So there are times when you want to vary the tempo of your song, but you want that to be a conscious choice. You don't want it to be, I'm playing this bit really well because I know it really well. And I'm kind of hoping you don't notice I'm playing this bit really slow because I'm not playing this bit again because I learned the end. So a way to get around that is to break your song up into chunks and don't learn it in a linear fashion. So you might learn the first bit. That's great. I can play the first third of my song. I'm going to put that aside and I'm actually going to concentrate on the last third of the song and I'm going to learn how it ends. And that's fantastic. And when I know how to do that, I'll go back to the first bit and I'll play the first bit for a while and then I'll play the last bit and then I'll put them aside and I'll only play the middle. And the middle tends to be the bit that people fall down. And get that middle bit so you can play it in the dark, in your sleep with your eyes closed and then put it together. Or alternatively, another way that I've heard is you start at the end and you learn the last bit first and then you learn the middle and then you learn the beginning. And your brain will fight you on this because it doesn't make sense to learn it in that order, but it does mean that you're always moving into something you already know. So if I learn the first bit at the end, last, I'm playing bit 1. I'm probably going to be the least bit I'm good at because it's the last bit I learned, but I'm moving into bit 2, which I already know, and I'm moving into the end and I already know. So that's one way to get a consistent tempo. However, once you've got everything that you can play it all at the same tempo, then you start thinking about, how do I want to vary? Do I want to vary the tempo in this song? How am I going to vary it? Am I going to start off really slow and then get peppy in the middle and then end up, how do I want to end up? But it doesn't have to be the same all the way through if you don't want it to. If you do want it to be all the way through, it needs to be appropriate to what you're playing. So playing a waltz at breakneck speed might be fun if you're the musician and not the dancer, but probably not so much fun unless if you're the dancer. So it's really about what is appropriate for what you're doing. But so much of this is all about how you're interpreting the song. But even if you want to play it perfectly along with the record, if you listen to the Beatles, there's lots and lots of places in a Beatles song to breathe. You know, they have, you know, pauses at the end of phrases. Sometimes there'll be a bridge or a musical interlude between a verse and a chorus. There might be extra cool stuff in there that perhaps you're not even realizing is there, because we all have listened to the Beatles songs so many times that we just listen to it. In fact, I challenge you to grab one of your favorite songs, not now, but later, grab one of your favorite songs that you know backwards, that you listen to all the time, probably now without even thinking about it, and think about it. Sit down and concentrate. What is the time signature in this song? How is it phrased? What's the tempo? How fast is it going? And that brings us to the very last thing, which is dynamics. And dynamics is how loud and soft in volume that a song is playing. And I think that's also really important to think about as well. So you see, it is like learning to drive a car, because there's all these things coming at you. Oh my God, you want me to think about time signature and tempo and dynamics and phrasing, and I'm just going to go and play like your friend. I'm just going to sit in the corner and play like this for the rest of my life. And that is completely fine. But if you really want to bring something fresh to what you're playing, think about dynamics. Am I going to start off really soft? And then I'm going to get really loud because the middle of the song's really exciting. And then I'm going to get really, really soft again. Or maybe I'm just going to sort of wave in and out of my dynamics. And that can definitely work too. I wish I could give you the examples to play that I had for you today. But as I said, they will be in the video. I'm not sure why the technical gods are challenging us today, but you've all been incredibly patient. Do you have any questions, any comments? I can see, let me have a look. Brown Eyed Girl is very much fun from Terry. So yes, go back and listen to Brown Eyed Girl and think about what Morrison is doing with the phrasing, especially. I mean, that guy and the dynamics in his voice is absolutely amazing. Maybe Freed says Woodstock and Brown Eyed Girl. Again, yes, that maybe you could jump on YouTube and put in whatever song you pick, Brown Eyed Girl covers, and see who else has covered that song. And in fact, there's another great video, which I'll find a link and stick it on the 4-Inch Cats page. And it's a compilation of songs that were hits as covers that weren't necessarily hits when they were originally released. Well, thank you everyone for coming.
Yay.
Thank you for your patience.
It was great. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll catch you later. Bye.
Take care. Bye.